Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. On this episode, I interviewed Alfonso Salemi, who is the co-founder of JAAG Properties. They specialize in rent-to-own and have had over 240 successful projects. JAAG works with mortgage brokers, realtors, and tenants to conduct a successful rent-to-own transaction. And on this episode, we discussed growing his company to 8 full-time employees, today's market impact on RTOs, rent-to-owns, including the higher interest rates, what happens if appraisals come in below the predetermined purchase price, the 3 components of a successful rent-to-own, and also how realtors can work with JAAG in order to help their clients, their tenant clients, eventually buy a home. So there you go. I hope you'll enjoy the episode. And if you do, make sure to leave us a review on the Apple Podcast platform. 5 stars would be appreciated. Make sure to share this with a friend or family member. And then also, if you want to connect with me to discuss multi-unit investing, we have some pretty cool 10-unit opportunities in the Niagara region. So make sure to go to WellOffX on Instagram, send me a DM, or you can just book a call on the website, welloff.ca. Enjoy the episode, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. All right, I'm here with Alfonso for a second time. First time was probably maybe 2 years ago or so, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, at least 2 years ago now. Yeah, with the pandemic, it's hard to gauge. It feels like not too long ago, but then on the calendar,
that's true.
It is, right?
That's true. Yeah. So what's going on with you? We were talking a little bit before we started recording. So what's new? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, you know what? Very similar to yourself and your lovely wife. We have a little guy that's almost 14 months. Actually, tomorrow will be 14 months. So he's keeping us rather busy, and perspective on life and talking about just the rapid development in that little guy. And our team has grown since we've spoken. Now we have 8 full-time team members, and then my business partner and myself. So there's 10 of us all together, and just kind of riding up the storm. It seems like a year and a half ago, when everybody was talking about purchase prices increasing, and now's a great time for your program because it's a hard time to buy and the purchase prices are so high. Rent to own is a great opportunity, and the same things are being said to me today, right? With the interest rates increasing and purchase prices slightly coming down, not as quickly as they went up, but now's a great time to buy and a great time to get in, and it just reiterates the fact that our strategy, the rent to home program solution that we have for our clients, for our joint venture partners, it works in an up market, it works in a down market, it works in a flat market. So home ownership doesn't go out of style.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna actually ask you about this, but in what way has the recent changes impacted rent to own model? And I guess just to kind of recap for anyone who doesn't really know how this works, but basically it's rent to own. If you want to just briefly explain it, it's kind of like you predetermine a price that you're going to buy at with tenants. The tenants will pay a certain amount of rent, which is generally a little bit higher than market value. And then after a certain amount of time has passed, they set themselves up to be able to qualify for the purchase of this home. And you guys guide them along the way throughout that process. The investor makes some money and the tenant gets to buy a home where they might not be able to in the current position they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. The only things that I would add to that is we have a client first strategy. Mm-hmm. So our clients will apply for our program. We'll essentially underwrite them and qualify them based on a purchase price that they're qualified for. So they actually get to go out and choose the home that they want to live in. So based on the budget that we've determined, the future purchase price, or the price that they'll be buying back, like you said, is predetermined at the end of the program, and a portion of their monthly payment is actually credited back to them so that they can check off that box of down payment, fix their credit if that's the issue, and then make sure that their income is at the level that they need to be. So you pretty much covered it. But for those people, for clients that can't qualify for conventional financing because the bank or mortgage lender has turned them down, and then on the joint venture partner side, or the investor side of things, is an individual that wants to invest in real estate because like we just talked about, home ownership doesn't go out of style, but doesn't want to manage the tenants, the toilets, the maintenance, the rent collection, all the things that come up with there's the pros of real estate investing, and then the downside of tenants and their lives can impact how your investment goes, right?
Sure.
So we manage all of that for our joint venture partners. Report, we send our team to visit the property pretty much on a quarterly basis. We have a credit team that we work with that works with our clients to make sure that they are doing those things. It's not kind of a set it and forget it and be like, oh, 3 years ago you said you were going to do this and you didn't do that. We're keeping them on track throughout the program for helping them.
All right. So now that things have changed, rates are higher. We've seen a decrease in sales. So I was just looking at some stats earlier today from the Toronto Real Estate Board. There have been roughly, I think it was 50% decline in sales year over year.
Okay.
So obviously it's way down. Listings are up. And these aren't scary numbers because what we had seen before was unrealistic. Like you put a house up for sale, it sells right away. Now it's sitting on the market for 3 or 4 weeks and not the end of the world. But how does that impact your business as somebody who's doing rent to owns?
Yeah, quite honestly, it's had I would say a positive impact. When we were going out, or our the realtors or the real estate professionals that were working with our clients that had a budget and were going out and searching for homes, we were running up against multiple offer situations in almost every scenario, right? So when we had a hard top line budget, we couldn't go $1 more than they could offer, right? So we saw clients think they see that listing price. That's what they think, that's the sticker price. That's what it should be sold for. And as we saw, they were, 60, 70, 80, some cases $150,000 over that list price. On the flip side now, when we see that, now there's some negotiation that we can have with sellers. So clients are actually, their dollar is going a little bit farther, where now if they're qualified or if we've given them a budget of say $600,000, they can actually look at something that's listed at maybe at $650 and potentially get it for that $600,000 price point, right? So from that side of things, it's been a positive where clients now can take their time. They don't feel rushed. There was points where clients were no inspection. You can't walk through the property, make your best offer, and that was it. And when that's okay if you're maybe looking at like a t-shirt, right? But when you're making one of the biggest purchases of your life, you want to walk through that home. You want to get comfortable. You want to, feel like that, this is a good investment or a good purchase for me, right? So now I think that's the positive impact. The downside is that, everybody's purchasing power has been cut back, right? So from 3% interest rates, right, that people were getting now to probably closer to 5 and 6. And, and as we're recording this, there's another rate announcement, I think scheduled for tomorrow or Thursday. I think it's just been a little bit of a shell shock, but I think rates are more or less on average where they've been historically, right? So like you said, it was unsustainable to have those rock bottom interest rates, and everybody knew what the government was doing and kind of, infusing purchasing power into the economy. But now I think it's getting back to a dose of reality of, well, this is where they're going to be hovering around for the next little while. So
just as you were talking, I was just wondering, have you ever had a situation where a tenant buyer, as I think you call them, bought a multi-unit? So maybe they bought a 4-plex or a 6-plex. They live in one of the units, and then eventually they own that whole building and they're able to kind of live for free.
That's a great question, and I've always tried to wrap my head around how we can do that. But the closest that we've had to that is we've had a few now tenant buyers that have purchased, say, like a raised bungalow or a property that they could convert into a duplex. So with the intention that, hey, there was a side entrance that went right down into the basement, and we've actually had a few that were successful through the rent-to-home program. They were doing the work themselves throughout the program, and then by the end of the program, when they own the home, they were able to legally duplex it and rent out the basement or rent out both units, and then they were on to their next property using that equity to buy their next property. So we encourage our tenant buyers, whether it's renting a room or the basement or the upper unit of their home, to supplement their payment each month. The only thing is that we want our clients to be their primary residence, right? So then when we get into duplexes, triplexes, 4 or more, it's different type of financing sometimes with the banks and lenders, and we want that tenant buyer to essentially kind of stand on their own credit, their own income, their own down payment versus relying on the fact that they need, 3 other units of income or rental payment to qualify for the financing. We can't control that. Nobody can control that, right? And if they're not trained landlords or they're not accustomed to being a landlord, it's very difficult to train them to be financially astute as well as a landlord as well, right? Because if there's late payments or missed payments, then that payment's missed, and that will quickly turn around and say, well, hey, I didn't collect the rent this month, I can't make my payment on time. Versus if it's one unit or say a bedroom or something like that in that home, then it's not so reliant on 2 or 3 other rental payments for that.
Okay. Well, just on that note, have you had investors approach you at any point to try to make this sort of model work? Like, I'm looking to buy a fourplex. I've got cash available. I've got a bunch of rentals, so it's hard for me to qualify, but I can set it up in maybe like 2-3 years. I'll have some equity built. I'll need a lower LTV so I can refinance whatever.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We've had that. And, what I always go back to is that, if that's a different model, that doesn't fit into our rent-to-home model. If we were looking to JV or partner with investors on multi-units, then that would be out, in another lane or another channel. And myself and my business partner, we also have multi-unit, buildings that we invest in it ourselves as well, but outside of the the JAAG Properties rent-to-home system, right? So it's an interesting concept. I've had several investors approach us, but again, because we're using joint venture partners, our own capital as well, and if we were looking to invest in a fourplex, we would just invest in a fourplex, right? And say, hey, we're going to hold on to that property for that long-term hold and do it that way.
Sure. Okay. That's I never thought about like the investment side, but it's pretty interesting to think about that as well. Now, with the rates being somewhere, this is December 6th right now, so this episode will be released shortly. The rates are roughly in the 6% range if you're looking at prime, plus whatever it is for a fixed. So when it comes to these tenant buyers, let's say they had a credit issue, that's fine, they can address it. But for the people that are, if they have other issues or whatnot, is it still making sense for them to be able to afford buying these homes after the 2 or 3 years have passed at a 6% interest rate, or is it making it more difficult?
Well, the thing is we've always, even before there was the banks were stress testing everybody that was qualifying for mortgages, we were stress testing our tenant buyers. So even when the programs were starting and we were, seeing mortgages at 2.5 or 3 or 4%, we were always anticipating rates to go up and for that tenant buyer to qualify at a higher interest rate. So we're just doing the same. So if the interest rates today are hovering around that 6%, we would look at, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant Buyer, you need to qualify in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and rates will probably be 7.5 or 8%, right? So we're basing it on that. If they don't go that high, well, then that's just a bonus. They're going to qualify at that lower rate at that time. So it still does make sense. We use a very conservative appreciation rate for our clients so that they can qualify, because that end purchase price is really, it's not just a number that we're saying, hey, let's use 15% appreciation and let's double what we bought it for. It's based on what the clients are able to qualify for based on their income and their down payment, because we're channeling them to A lenders, B lenders, where they can qualify conventionally at the end of the program. So if they're not able to sustain that or able to qualify at the end of the program, we won't even start that rent-to-home program, because we want them to have a clean exit, for them to go to the one of the big banks or major lenders where they can qualify for that financing. So it makes sense because of the numbers that we're looking at. Typically, like you said, if credit's an issue, over a 3-4 year period, most of the time with some diligence and some work, our clients can repair those issues. But the two main things are a solid, stable income and having some type of deposit or down payment at the beginning of the program. Mm-hmm. We can save up more down payment. We can make sure that, if it's a new job or a new career, or if someone's a newcomer into Canada and come here for work, now they have that time to establish that income and, pay some taxes in the country as well. And that's what the banks and lenders want to see.
Sure. So that whole deposit thing, you said that you're kind of assisting them in the deposit. So let's just say market rent's $1,000 a month for a property. You're charging this tenant $1,500, but that $500 extra that they're paying, you're saving it on their behalf to apply it towards the down payment in the future when they're ready to buy. Yeah,
and that's a simple equation, but the number works out to be is how much do they have now saved at the beginning of the program? How much do they need by the end of the program, and then figuring out what that gap is, and then dividing it over the length of the term, 36 months or 48 months, and so that we can get to that, whether it's 5% or 8% or 10% that they need by the end of the program. So, so it could be 500, it could be 300, it could be 800, depending on how much they have saved at the beginning and how much they need by the end of the program. Okay. So it's credited to them at the end of the program.
Yeah. Now, you said you've got 8 full-time employees. Last time I spoke to you, I don't know how many you had. A lot less than 8, I think. Yeah. So how many transactions are you guys doing as a company now per month, let's say?
Yeah, typically our goal is to be around five new rent-to-home projects started per month. So, somewhere between 50 and 60 projects a year. And now, because it's, typically 3-year cycles, we're exiting, 2 to 3 or sometimes even 4 projects per month. So there's somewhere between, 8 to 10 transactions that we're buying and acquiring, starting our rent-to-home programs, and then exiting successfully our tenant buyers at the end of the program.
And do you know off the top of your head what the success rate is for your tenant buyers?
I do, yeah. So we're over a 97% success rate with our tenant buyers. Now, we've extended programs from, say, a 3-year term to a 4-year term because maybe another year of credit or established income, or typically it's not the down payment because we've worked out that equation. But again, life happens. So especially what we've seen again through COVID, where income, people that were working in the service industry or the jobs that they just couldn't work and couldn't make that income, right? So and again, it's just to credit to our credit team. That's funny. Credit to our credit team. But it's because we're looking at our clients and looking at that success rate where them coming into the program. So if they haven't been at their job long enough, or they're starting a brand new business, and we're like, well, let's establish that this is viable, or hey, let's save up some of that income, right? And it's not a zero down rent-to-home program, right? They need to have some, I need to find a better term for this, but skin in the game, right? Where they have something to put down and that they want to put roots down. So it's the quality of the client that, that we're working with to, and our credit team to go to that success rate.
Do you expect that rate to come down in the next couple months, or maybe in the next 2-3 years? Because not necessarily because you guys are doing anything wrong, but maybe the prices have come down, so people don't want to purchase at the predetermined price anymore, or something like that?
Yeah, like again, because the program is most of the time, I would say 3 years. That's usual. That's probably about over 70-80% of our programs are in 3 years or maybe even 4. I do think that, the prices go up and down in an upward motion, right? So, and again, because we're using very conservative, we're not anticipating or building in 20% appreciation each year. I really don't. I don't think that success rate is going to come down. We're basing it again on the client's qualification. Now, in this midterm period where maybe property prices won't appraise at that end purchase price, again, we're happy to extend that program until they do. Now, we've seen Ontario that's been on a 15-20 year run on increased purchase prices, but counterparts or different companies that we've worked with in Alberta experienced that in, I think it was 2016, 2017, when the oil crisis and prices kind of flatlined and actually went down. And what they had done is basically extend those programs. So if they were scheduled to sell, say, at $500,000 and they weren't able to get that appraisal for that 500, they would extend that program and wait it out until the prices went back, and most of them were able to get back into that point, whether it's 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years after.
Now, is that, in that scenario, is that a bad thing for you if you had to extend it because the properties weren't appraising, or it doesn't really matter?
No, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the client's still in that home. They want to buy that house. If they say, hey, I don't want to buy that home, and because of the purchase price, well, then we can work something out in terms of whether we sell the property or move on from that. But I guess it'd be kind of a neutral. Like we would be okay with extending that program. The clients are still covering principal, interest, tax, and insurance payments. They want to live there. They've most cases done work, improved that property, maintained it like it's their own home. So either net neutral or it could be a positive for us.
Just if we go back to kind of the company itself and how things are kind of run, do you guys need an investor partner for every single deal? Is that kind of how it works? Like you bring in a partner, they purchase the home, and then you guys coordinate everything on your end, and then you have the tenant buyer. So a three three pieces to this?
Absolutely, yeah. So for the majority of the programs that we operate, yeah, we have our joint venture partner, we have our tenant buyer, and then JAAG Properties is kind of that intermediary between the two, right? Where, we're effectively, property management for our joint venture partner. We're, the landlord and property management for that tenant buyer. And the services that we offer are not necessarily fixing toilets, but, fixing credit, saving up down payments, right? Facilitating what the client, the tenant buyer needs, and reporting to our joint venture partners so that they're feeling safe and secure in their investment. And we're handling, any issues or calls from the tenant buyers, the clients, things that, eventually do come up. We're handling all that for our joint venture partners.
Okay. And for any realtors that are listening to this, if they have a client that might qualify as a tenant buyer for whatever reason, what would that look like for them?
Yeah, absolutely. We see that all the time. Those are some of our most favorite, connections or relationships that we've built. Is that think of us as, somebody referred to it as the fire extinguisher under the sink. You always know it's there. You hope you never have to use it. And in the same, well, I'll say it to any realtors that we hope that every client that you work with is just straightforward, qualifying at the bank, getting exactly what they what the tenant buyer, what the client needs to qualify for. But in the case where they don't have that amount, or they don't have that qualifying amount, I should say, is that they can refer them to us. We'll put them through that same screening process, that qualifying process. And once we've given them that budget, that realtor now can work with that client to show homes, do their realtor thing, listings, searching for homes, driving around looking for that. And we'll work with that realtor, with the agreement of purchase and sale, submitting the offer, sign backs, all that kind of stuff. And they're still now able to close that deal that they wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah. Do you feel like it kind of takes a little convincing for a realtor to get the client to go for this type of program? Or
sometimes some of our realtors, now that we've done a handful or more deals with, they love it because now this is another avenue. They can't, they bring them to their favorite mortgage broker, or they've been declined at the bank, and now they have a client that they can't service because they're not able to qualify. Some realtors, it's not the conventional route, right? It's not something that they learned, from their office, or there's, that veteran agent that was burned by a rent-to-own 15 years ago, and the neighbor's dog walker's cousin's friend told them that rent-to-own is bad, or they heard about a story. So sometimes, it takes a little bit of convincing, but most of the time, when the realtor sees the benefit for their client, the benefit for them closing another deal, it just needs a little bit of time to understand it. So if you're open to it, and taking the time of understanding on how it works, most of the realtors that we work with are quite happy with the results.
Again, I'm going to ask you just for stats, not that you necessarily know, but just off the top of your head, what % of your transactions come from agents that are bringing you a client that last minute they couldn't get financing, or they thought moment? Yeah.
We get those calls quite often where, the financing just got pulled out from underneath them, and can you get them qualified? We need to close in 3 days. And we love those calls because it's like, oh boy, all right, wish you would have contacted us. But again, they didn't know that the financing would be pulled away. Yeah, I don't have an exact number on how many are referred to us by realtors. But again, this is part of my role of joining you on this type of podcast, going out to different brokerages and meeting different people. To just educate people that this is another option where, think about, again, if you're a realtor listening to this, think about in the last 12 months, in the year of, 2022, how many clients, you could have helped through a rent-to-home program, because they were turned down by the bank. They wanted to buy a home. They needed more space because their family was growing, but because they weren't able to qualify today, they are on your nurture list that you're going to follow up with them every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months until something changes. We try to think of we're that bridge, or that kind of that fast forward where we can help them today. If they have that solid income, if they have some down payment available, we can get them into that home today. That realtor is able to transact on that. So I don't have an exact stat. I'd have to get back to you on that, on how many are referred. But again, we're looking to help more and more people do that. So if realtors have clients, it's a good avenue to explore.
for that example you gave where it's like three days before closing and you have somebody who's calling you, are you guys able to close in those scenarios, or is that really tough for you?
Don't be surprised if we say, hey, we're going to need an extension, right? So don't be surprised, because again, we're not, just a bank sitting on cash buying these properties, pure cash. In some cases, maybe we've done that, but that's not the normal route. We're going and qualifying through conventional means, whether it's our joint venture partners, whether it's JAAG Properties ourselves that are buying the properties. We need that time to bring the file to the lender so that they can look at the property, look at the joint venture partner to make sure that they're qualified. So don't be surprised if you say, hey, you know what, we need a week extension, but the numbers look, and again, we want to take that time to you go through the application process with that tenant buyer. That's a 3-year or more relationship that we're starting with that tenant buyer. Just because they have a little bit of money down, we're not chomping at the bit going, hey, let's go. We want to look at the viability of that client to say, hey, how successful are they going to be? Wait, they've been declined. Why did the lender now pull that financing? What is stopping them? Is it income? Is it down payment? Is it credit? Is it a combination of those things? So we want the time to to review that file, because not really for us. It's not about starting that rent to own program. It's about successfully completing it and selling that back to the tenant buyer, selling that home back to the tenant buyer. So we want to take our time and do our due diligence as well.
Yeah, that's cool. There's so many different ways to succeed in real estate or to build a business in real estate, and this is an interesting way. It's a niche market for sure, and you guys are targeting specific people and trying to help specific people. So I like what you're doing here. And again, we've had you on before, so to the people that are listening to this for the first time, I'm sure they're learning something new. So just to kind of recap, you're talking about so there's 3 components to this. We said there's the investor, there's JAAG Properties, and then there's the tenant buyer. You guys are tenant first. You find the tenant, and then they go look for a property. Realtors can cooperate with you, and they will get their full commission. You're not taking anything away from them. Nope. Is there anything we kind of missed here? Or?
No, I think the thing is if this is the first time that you're hearing about rent to home, or if you've heard things about rent to own, it's really taking the time to explore. Reach out to us, reach out to George, reach out to somebody that's done it. We have so many great testimonials from our clients, from the professionals like the realtors, the mortgage agents that we work with, and specifically with our joint venture partners. I feel so fortunate to work with these individuals, because obviously everybody invests because they want to bring back more money than they've invested, right? But the one thing that resonates or that is maybe similar to all of the joint venture partners that we've worked with is that they want to make an impact. They want their money not only to make more money, but they want it to impact the communities and the people that they're helping. So the fact that they get to help a family, kind of get onto that property ladder, change the trajectory for that family's life, that getting out of that rent cycle and own their home, that's the one thing that, I feel so fortunate is that our joint venture partners want to make that impact. They want to help people while they're making a return on their investment. And, I've been saying this for years, but the two shouldn't be mutually exclusive. You can't just make money and not help people. If you can help people and make money, I think that's where really kind of the rubber hits the road, and you can do so much for that.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that there are so many different strategies. Why is it that you chose to focus on this specifically? Do you feel like this is kind of the best thing for you, or what's the reason that you're doing rent to own? Or
initially when I started learning about real estate investing in general, there was all the multifamily and REITs and the BRRRR strategies and it wasn't called BRRRR back then, but like rehabbing and all those types of things. And for me, I'll be honest, at first I was kind of I was a nervous investor saying, I'm going to buy a property and I'm going to put a tenant in there and they're going to ruin it. They're going to tear it apart. They're going to, not pay their rent. They're going to leave the windows open in the winter time and, run the water 24 hours a day. So the fact that you could help somebody and they feel that sense of ownership while they're in that property, they're taking care of that property as if it's their own. That was one thing that called to me. And the simple fact why, like I remember it was I think it was in grade 8 in the summer of going into grade 9. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. What do you want to do when you grow up, right? You're starting high school and then thinking to get on the path to go to college, university. And what kept on coming back to me was just, I want to help people. Right? I want to help people. And there's so many different ways that you can do that. And just the satisfaction that we can help people, get into their home, become homeowners, B, help realtors, mortgage brokers do more business, because if a realtor can close more business through our program, they're going to like us, they're going to be happy, they're going to win their awards and get their accolades. And again, helping our joint venture partners, like some of the families and people that we've been able to meet is, hey, we were able to go on a Disney vacation with the returns that we made on this rent to own investment, or hey, we were able to put away some money for our kids' school in the future, or we were able to, donate to our church because of the returns that we were able to get. And just that simple thing, and it sounds so cliche or cheesy, but just helping people achieve what they want. It allows me to achieve everything that I want, right? And getting closer to the goals that, whether it's travel or more time with my son and my wife too, but both. Yeah, if you're listening to this, I love spending time with both of them. My son thinks I'm way more funnier than my wife, that's for sure. But yeah, I think that's what called out to me, was that being able to help people make a great return while doing it, and kind of putting those pieces together.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part of it, just helping people, like you said. And so now, just on a personal level, what will Alfonso's life look like in about 5 years?
Oh, wow. What will it look like in 5 years? Hopefully, doing more interviews, educating people. I love talking about this topic, right? So whether it's big stages, Zoom meetings, podcasts, presentations, sharing the stories that, of the close to now, we're approaching now, I think it's 250 families that we've been able to help, educating that this is a way. I don't think I'll ever go away from that, right? Maybe I'll be doing that with palm trees in the background on a laptop in warmer climates from November to like April. But continuing to grow my own personal portfolio of real estate investments and more passive income. But ultimately, I love interacting with people. So the more opportunity that I can do that, like people think I'm crazy, but anytime that I hear about like a networking event or, a real estate summit or something like that, I'm like a kid in a candy store that, I just walk around and walk to groups of people, put out my hand and say, hey, I'm Alfonso. What's your name? What do you do? And, kind of that. I just want to do more of that. That's my bliss. That's my happy spot. I think just doing more of that and just, again, warmer climates in when it's cold here in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. You didn't mention anything about golf.
Yes, well, of course. In those warmer climates, playing golf, tennis, both of those, right? So, those are definitely more hobbies. If I can, train or act like a professional athlete, I'll never get onto the PGA Tour or the or any of the other tours now. But yeah, like having more time for those types of things as well too. Golfing more for sure. Definitely, George is we get out on the golf course more.
For those that are listening, Alfonso is a pretty good golfer. So if you ever want to go out play with them, I'm sure he'll be happy to.
Oh, now you've set me up. Now, so I got to get out there and practice.
Well, yeah, I mean you're shooting in the 80s, right?
A good day. A good day is in the 80s.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I think there's like less than 1% of golfers break 100. So that's my goal for this coming year.
Okay,
got to break 100.
All right. Well, we'll definitely.
I just started last year, in case anyone's judging me.
Yeah, lofty goals. But you got it in you, George, and with a young son too. That you know what? Maybe they'll be our caddies one day, or they'll join us on the golf course with us.
For sure. That's I always think about that. Just getting him started early so he can get a head start, not like me.
Yeah. I thought of an invention of a car seat for a golf cart. so that they can come out and join us, right? You're never too far away from the golf cart, right?
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. So how do people reach you? What's the best place?
Yeah, the best way to get in contact with us is the website, jaagproperties.com. Visit us online. Obviously, all of our social media handles. 1-866-JAAG now if you want to talk to a real life human being on the other side of the phone. But JAAG Properties, and find us through those channels.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming by. I know it was probably a long drive for you. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, George. It's always nice to see you. And great work that you're doing on this podcast, the content, the guests, and everything that you do for the real estate investing community. You're a wealth of knowledge, and really appreciate and honored to be on here again as well.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.